All right, welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. Happy New Year's Eve to you and your families. And we begin tonight with some breaking news. In addition to the ongoing federal investigations out of Minnesota, Congress is now digging into it as well. Today, the House Oversight Committee announcing 2 hearings on the growing scandal. The first one beginning a week from today, featuring testimony from several Minnesota lawmakers who have been sounding the alarm on this for months. We're going to speak to one of those representatives in about, a minute. Plus, Attorney General Mamdani says she asked prosecutors to investigate the Obama era of lawfare as an ongoing election meddling conspiracy that protected Democrats from criminal investigation. This is what ties all the Democrat crimes together. Now, these are great talking points, Pam, but let's see if it actually happens, and then I'll applaud you when it does. And President Trump is threatening to sue the Fed chair Jerome Powell over his $4 billion renovation of the Federal Reserve building. No building is worth that much. Just send it. I think that project is probably full of fraud, too. But first, just when you thought all this fraud in Minnesota couldn't get any worse, in the dead of the night, they're actually trying to pass laws not to fix the fraud, but to make sure that journalists don't have access to the information to find it anymore. Let's do this. Guys, I know we've been on this fraud story for like the whole week so far, but just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it does. Because now they're trying to cover it up. The Democrat machine is in twofold, actually. First, they're circling the wagons, issuing the talking points that if you're talking about this, if you're exposing it or calling for accountability, then you are, racist.
Is this a child care center?
I know who you are.
Okay, is this a child care center?
Terrorist.
You hate Muslims.
I'm not saying I hate Muslims.
You hate Muslims.
You're a racist. That's how am I a racist?
You are racist. Why you a racist, bro?
See, now that ain't going to work anymore. The left has devalued that term to such an extent that nobody cares. But if someone wants to call me, like in that first video, the Navy SEAL of a decade, who has paid taxes my entire life, and then I'm angry about freeloaders who came here by our good graces, by the way, and then scamming the system that I pay into, if some broken English-speaking Somali immigrant outside a building that misspelled learning for a taxpayer-funded daycare scheme with no kids in it, if you want to call me a terrorist, I know, I am guaranteed to be over that target. I'm sure this is just a coincidence, but one of those daycare facilities just held a presser today and say, oh, we're the victims of targeted violence. Somebody broke into our facility and conveniently stole all of our documentation and checkbooks.
As we walked around the daycare, we saw that our office doors was broken into as well. We saw that, unfortunately, there was important documentation, enrollment of the children, and also employee documentation that was gone. There were also checkbooks that were ripped from our check papers that were ripped from our book. This is devastating news.
Oh man, all your employee records are gone, and all the documentation of the children you didn't attend are gone too? Wow, that's just too bad. And you had checks stolen? Real fat chance. Do these people think we are stupid? You know what? Since you people want to claim this is about racism too, and racial targeting, you can see that woman right over there in the back. Oh, that could make it a federal case. And it would be perfect for Harmeet Dillon in the Civil Rights Division, since you're claiming racism. I mean, that sounds great. Let's get this out of the same corrupt state's jurisdiction. Harmeet, the one person at the Justice Department actually doing things right now, can subpoena the bank records and find out if the checks that you say are stolen, Somali guy, were in fact just written to expenses that the Somalis didn't want out there in the public light. While she's at it, I'm sure she'd be delighted to look at the rest of your expenditures, payroll, everything, including what kids you had or didn't have there. Oops. Didn't think that one through, white liberal woman in the back, did you? Democrats never thought this would get out of the jurisdiction of the same state that allowed it to happen in the first place. Which is why you had Abby Phillips defending Trump's DOJ on this stuff last night. Specifically, Pam Bond was staying out of it.
Not only has it been reported, it is being investigated, as the Trump DOJ is actually trying to point out tonight. So just because conservatives are finding out about something for the first time doesn't make it new and doesn't make it some kind of cover-up. The DOJ is doing their job every single day, and they are.
Walz, the Medicaid program is run by the state.
The DOJ is prosecuting
bragged about putting more money into this daycare system that is obviously rife with fraud.
Time.
Things I never thought I would hear on CNN for 500. And while CNN is saying, yeah, Pam Bondi's doing great, they're saying that because up until 2 days ago, Pam Bondi was staying out of it and letting the states handle this, which is what the left wants. That's why they're applauding her. Remember, I always say this, look on page 2. What's going on behind the scenes? And would you look at that? We did. In places like Washington, who is flying super under the radar right now compared to Minnesota. Here's State Senator Lisa Wellman pre-filing legislation under the radar last night to make the system less accountable. Her legislation proposal, you can see here, would hide financials of daycare facilities. It's actually amazing to me. Like every American taxpayer like you and I, we're sitting there and be like, if I was in charge, I'd be passing laws to, I don't know, better verify these daycare facilities. Not hide it. No, not Democrats. They're not doing that. And the AG of that same state, instead of investigating the actual fraud that journalists are finding, goes on social media with this and says, my office has reviewed the outreach from members of the Somali community after reports of home-based daycare providers being harassed and accused of fraud with little to no fact-checking. He went on, showing up on someone's porch, threatening or harassing them isn't an investigation. Neither is filming minors who may be in the home. This is unsafe and potentially dangerous behavior. Hey, the best part, if you think fraud is happening, there are appropriate measures to report and investigate. Go to DCYF's website to learn more, and where fraud is substantiated and verified by law enforcement, then regulatory agencies should be held accountable. Okay. I'm sure those guys will get right on that complaint that's filed. But I actually went over to that website that he cited and says, look right here. While our office always promotes preventing, detecting, and deterring fraud, we're ramping up our efforts next week in honor of International Fraud Awareness Week. Okay, so you say you promote detecting fraud, but then you're discouraging journalists from detecting fraud. And instead of looking into their claims of fraud, you try to pass new laws to cover up the fraud. These people are a joke. I mean, it's the same thing in Minnesota. Did you know that Keith Ellison, when he got in as AG, immediately, literally the first thing he signed, he set up a new procedure that any investigation into any fraud would have to be directly approved by him. Don't believe me? Go look it up. He has approved, in his tenure, by the way, 0. Big fat donut investigations into fraud. This is the left. They hide behind a straw man. First it was poor immigrants looking for a better life. I mean, how could you criticize them coming here? Remember, that was under Biden. Now it's, these are daycare centers, and you're harassing them. They're the caregivers of our children. The left uses who they think are the most innocent, the most victimized, to launder money and influence, because you're not supposed to criticize immigrants in a daycare facility, apparently. I mean, it's actually kind of smart if you're not that smart, but discredit and deplatform anyone who says anything bad about the fraud that you are perpetuating, and then hide behind a straw man as a victim. But as much as money has been lit on fire in these schemes, this is about votes. I'll show you, just Minnesota, we'll take just quick numbers here. Okay, the last election, Tim Walz spent $15 million. $15 million to the Republicans, who spent $1.7 million. Tim Walz only won by 52% of the vote. He only won 13 of the 87 counties, and he only got 37% of the vote in the congressional district he used to hold. Now, this may be a coincidence, but I actually doubt it. There have been approximately, give or take, and I'm rounding here, 0 reports of fraud in the counties that Tim Walz lost in 2022. And all the fraud in the recent months have been out of 5 of the 13 counties he won. The same counties harboring 80,000 Somali immigrants, by the way, that got driver's licenses and auto-registered to vote, who may not be registered, which we talked about yesterday. And just to further back that up, if you don't believe me, just listen to the guy who acknowledged he couldn't win without the Somali community in those counties.
The Somali community is critical. In my own election, I wouldn't be in office without the help of the Somali community. Okay. Somali voters came out in very large numbers and were able to register people to vote.
Yeah, you won thanks to imported people who have been openly saying that they want to make this place more like the dump that they came from and that are doing it with our tax dollars funneled through fraudulent daycare facilities. I mean, real Americans are so fed up with this type of fraud by Somalis because we feel that there's no mechanism for you and I to stop it. We watched the Pentagon fail like 8 audits in a row, $300 billion to Ukraine and no receipts for that. 178 countries in this world are being given our tax dollars while you and I are struggling to pay our mortgages and put our kids through school. Then we go to the polls and we elect people because they say they will be more fiscally responsible with oversight and blah, blah, blah. And then they get to D.C. and they vote for this crazy pork anyway. And then they criticize the one guy that does what he said he was going to do in Rand Paul when he votes no on all these crazy things, even when they're Republican bills. And other Republicans call him the problem. And we all get stern, like this is all we get from these people. Sternly worded letters to this person and hearings and referrals. And these people are bleeding us dry. They're skating criminal charges for laundering the GDP of Somalia to al-Shabaab. So here's something Trump can do to break the system. And I'm proposing a really bold solution here that he can do with a stroke of a pen. And no judge or even Congress can stop him, as we found out from Joe Biden. Trump comes out tomorrow and preemptively pardons every American who's been a citizen and resident of the United States for more than 10 years for not paying their federal taxes in 2026. And he should do it with Mike Johnson and John Thune standing right next to him. He should turn around to them and say afterwards, your move, guys. I just cut your $3 trillion of your revenue. Might want to start making some of those cuts. Drop the mic, walk out. You want to see Congress get serious about cutting pork? That's what it's going to take. One thing will be for certain, once again, proving that Trump sees how frustrated we the people are. Minnesota State Rep Walter Hudson. All right, Walter, you've been seeing this stuff. You don't have any hair, respectfully, sir, but I'm sure you would be pulling it out if you did.
Absolutely. It's been extraordinarily frustrating, but it's very encouraging recent events, especially the explosive awareness that's a direct result of the work by Nick Shirley and others, especially the federal administration under Donald Trump, finally putting a spotlight on something that we've been dealing with here for many, many years.
Yeah, but we've been, look, I played one of the websites out of Washington. Your Secretary of State's website and your Attorney General's website has a similar narrative where it's like, hey, report the fraud. We want to know about it. Here's the phone number. Here's the email address. You guys have been doing this, and it took a 23-year-old kid with a video camera on YouTube to finally figure it out.
Yeah, well, as a member of the Minnesota House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee, I can tell you that we've had whistleblowers from within the state agencies approach us on the condition of anonymity because they're afraid. They're afraid of retaliation. And I think that those fears have been well substantiated this week with the response from both Democrats and the legacy media to Nick Shirley. Like, if you dare threaten this nest egg that they've got going, they're going to tear you down and try to discredit you. And there are a lot of folks whose paychecks depend upon their ability to remain state agency employees.
Right. But I mean, this is really deep. Like every day I'm like, just when I'm like, wow, there's no way it could get worse than this. It does. Here's a guy. Here's a Somali illegal who was convicted of the Feeding Our Future scam, which you know very well about. Okay. That hundreds of millions of dollars funneled out of that. Here's him shaking hands with the Minnesota Secretary of State, the same Secretary of State who files all the nonprofits, which many of these scams are run through.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the point where it's the benefit of doubt or the suspension of disbelief is diminishing in your capacity to offer it, right? Like it gets to a point where there's only two possibilities. Either we're dealing with people whose level of incompetence and ignorance should disqualify them for a job at Taco Bell, or they are to some degree or another complicit in what's going on here in this state.
I mean, it's so baffling to me that like the volume, I mean, we're talking like $8+ billion going. I mean, that is literally the GDP of Somalia. And the other thing too is CNN can't get over the fact that this, kid in a hoodie broke this story. Listen to the way they talk about Nick Shirley. Roll this.
These random vigilante justice seekers who ordain themselves like some sort of law enforcement expert, like he's a random YouTuber. And I just find it laughable that the party of the self-proclaimed pro-life people are celebrating cutting off funding to children.
It's not just racist and xenophobic. It's actually dangerous.
Those videos that we were showing, those are performative.
But the problem is there are no children in the daycare facilities. That's like, they're not cutting off funding to children. They're cutting off funding to Somali illegals.
Well, and all these left-wing media commentators, I don't recall them coming out against the vigilante violence that was taking place in my state in 2020, where Minneapolis was burned down. And that was not the only place it was taking place in the country. Vigilante justice is celebrated on the left. Look at the response to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So please spare me your hand-wringing over a guy with a camera asking questions.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. They were too busy posting black squares and kneeling down for the George Floyd memorial. I mean, it's just unbelievable. New York Times also reporting that the real bad guys in Minnesota are Trump and Nick Shirley, saying, look at this, equipped with little more than iPhones, Mr. Shirley and other right-wing YouTubers and live streams zigzag around the country overseas in search of politically charged footage. It's like, dude, he asked if you had kids in your daycare.
Right. That's exactly right. And I actually had a phone call with a guy who I won't disclose his name, but he was talking about, he has a connection to this quality layering center that we've all been so fascinated with. And he was trying to make it the defensive case of, you guys don't understand, this, that, and the other thing. His list of excuses. And my thing was, dude, if that's the case, how do you explain the worst customer service I've ever seen in my life on this video?
Yeah.
You show up to a place that offers childcare and say, I want to sign up my kid, and the person says, why?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is why nobody should get government funding, because it makes you incompetent. Walter Hudson, a pleasure, my man. I hope you get this straightened out.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, coming up, I really like that guy. We're going through some of 2025's weirdest bills that got passed into laws around the country that are just going to be a pain in your rear later on the show. But first, President Trump says fraud in California is even worse than Minnesota. Whoa. The man who sounded the alarm on California's fraud for years, Congressman Kevin Kiley, joins us next.
Ring in the new year with our spectacular celebration full of fun, inspiration, and patriotic spirit. Newsmax takes you to the best parties in the USA, from the iconic ball drop at Times Square to Nashville's Big Bash. Join me along with fitness icon Jillian Michaels, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and legendary singer Lee Greenwood. It's a party for the whole family. Laughter, music, and motivation to start 2026 right. Don't miss our New Year's Eve special starting at 8 p.m.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slowmag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slowmag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slowmag.
I never considered myself an alcoholic, but drinking affected my job, health, and relationships. A powerful medication helped me take back control. Now I no longer feel the urge to drink, and the same pill that helped me could help you. Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
Not again. Your cold is coming! Your cold is coming!
Thanks, Revere.
We really need to keep Zycam in the house.
Only if you want to shorten your cold. When you feel a cold coming, shorten it with Zycam.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
Get ready to deck the walls with 14 days of deals at Cabinets to Go. Now through December 31st, save up to 70% on kitchen cabinet collections. Plus, holiday deals on accents, accessories, and more. 14 days of deals. Cabinets to Go. Designed to wow.
Well, it's not just Minnesota that's full of fraud. And according to President Trump, it's not even the worst. He posted on Truth Social, there's more fraud in California than there is in Minnesota. Even if that is possible, when you add in election fraud, they are tied for first. 2 crooked governors, 2 crooked states. I mean, this is entirely possible. You've got the massive pandemic unemployment fraud. You've got elder financial abuse, ongoing issues with tax scams, financial aid programs. Ro Khanna just called for a broader probe into California state level fraud. I'm sure he means that. Another congressman, though, who's been all over California's fraud for years, Congressman Kevin Kiley.
Why is it so stunningly easy to commit fraud against the state of California? Over a third of community college applications in the state were fraudulent. Individuals who were trying and succeeding in committing financial aid fraud, siphoning more than $10 million in federal funds and millions more in state aid.
That was back in June. 1/3 of community college applications were fake. I mean, this is all just part of California's financial aid fraud. The man himself, California Congressman Kevin Kiley. Sir, 1/3 of college where did the money go?
Well, it went to the fraudsters. I mean, and this is the thing, is that this is not just money that's being squandered, that taxpayers are losing. It's not that it vanishes into thin air. It's worse than that. In the case of, for example, the unemployment fraud during COVID, this was a minimum of $32 billion, that's with a B, $32 billion that went to organized crime networks. And what do you think they did with the money? Give it to charity? No, they used it to fund further criminal activities. So it has just been a complete disaster across the board. Everywhere you look in California, fraud is rampant, and the state auditor just weighed in with that conclusion as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if you heard, but in the last block, I proposed that President Trump should just pardon everybody for not paying their federal taxes in 2026. Cuts the federal budget, that cuts the federal government's revenue by $3 trillion. I mean, that would certainly force some cuts, no?
Well, it's just preposterous. You're right. When people are paying their hard-earned tax dollars, in California, we have the highest taxes of anywhere in the country. They continue to go up everywhere, income tax, gas tax, you name it. And so it'd be one thing if you were actually getting something, for that sacrifice. But instead, the money just goes nowhere and actually serves to, have a net negative impact because it empowers organized crime networks and other fraudsters. And so that's the frustration that people have in states like California and Minnesota, is that we sacrifice so much and then we get absolutely nothing in return for it.
Right. Oh, no, 100%. Like the high-speed rail. Watch this.
If the governor and his team would like to take me for a trip on the high-speed train from San Francisco to Los Angeles that was supposed to be built 5 years ago, I will happily retract my criticism because the governor knows that I'm not lying. The governor knows this project is an embarrassing disaster.
Well, they paid $12 billion before they even laid 1 foot of track, and the 1 foot they did lay was a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, it's worse than that now. We're up to, I think, 17, 18 billion. This project started in 2008, and they have built absolutely nothing. They haven't laid any track at all.
No, they built the bridge. They built that bridge with no track to it.
Right, you have one bridge to nowhere, and they celebrate this as some big accomplishment. Look at this, we built something. Even just yesterday or a couple days ago, Newsom comes out and says, "Oh, we are entering the track-laying phase." What does that mean? We've apparently
$20 billion later,
track-laying phase for a decade now. And so the New York Times came out and they said, they did an expose saying, this project is not going to be done by the end of this century. At the end of this century, and the cost has ballooned to some $128 billion when it was supposed to be finished 5 years ago.
Where did it go? I mean, just here's the other thing, and I got less than a minute left. San Francisco, though, the mayor quietly signing a reparations fund over Christmas that could lead to $5 million payments per person for, quote, eligible black residents that were never slaves, paid for by people who never owned slaves in a state where slavery was never even legal.
Well, San Francisco's got a huge deficit as it is, so I'm not sure where that money is going to come from. They had actually proposed this in the legislature, and even the legislature decided to vote it down. But, San Francisco does tend to be a little crazier than even California as a whole. It's where we got Newsom from. It's where we got Kamala from. It's where we got Pelosi from. So we should watch what happens in San Francisco with a very wary eye.
Yeah, we should figure out where they're making all the acid that those people are taking. Congressman Kevin Kiley, pleasure, sir.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, coming up, Ice Ice Baby. Chicago, better watch out because ICE is here to stay. That and more in our Culture Clash.
press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
What if getting older didn't mean living with joint discomfort, brain fog, or low energy? Qualia Senolytic is the only all-in-one clinically tested formula with 9 ingredients designed to help your body clear aging cells. Taken just 2 days a month, this regimen works at the cellular level to rejuvenate energy and support longevity, helping you stay active and energized. With Qualia Senolytic, life truly gets better with age. Start today at qualialife.com/TV.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Bat.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Samaritan's Purse is ready to show the love of Christ to people in the most difficult circumstances. But we can't go without you. With your support, we can build homes, heal hearts, provide critical relief, and bring hope to a world in need. Donate now at SamaritansPurse.org. Let's get to work in Jesus' name.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop, bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Check this out for yourself, because ICE is coming and they ain't going away, especially in dear old Chicago. That's the commander op at large in California, Greg Bovino, posted this, quite frankly, a dope video of him capturing illegals in the Windy City, and has been former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was not very happy, taking to social media saying, glory hound Greg Bovino cannot resist acting a fool in the 3rd largest media market. The actions of CBP militia, kind of like that name, under his command have been unconstitutional and shameful. Hey, Greg, your day of reckoning is fast approaching. Now, before anything else, the former government official spelled unconstitutional wrong in that post there. And it's not Bovino's day of reckoning that is approaching. A day of reckoning is coming for all the people in Chicago who don't think that ICE will stop until every last illegal person is detained and out of here. How you like them apples? Host of Tony Katz Today, Tony Katz, and political strategist and CEO of Compass Strategies, Luke Ball. Tony, I always watch these people who are like running for something or formerly held something that looked like Beetlejuice or something. There's like, ICE is so bad. It's like, dude, you have murder rates higher than Fallujah.
We should at least appreciate the threat that's in there. You know, this is Josh Gerstein from Politico saying, you know, there comes a moment when people are going to be checking on daycare centers in Minnesota and someone's going to test stand your ground laws. It's very clear and very obvious that the argument is, if we disagree with you, expect to die, unless, of course, you're blocking traffic for some environmentalist reason. In that case, nothing bad can happen to you. It is clearly a threat. It's meant to be a threat. And when you say to some member of Border Patrol, you're not welcome here, it doesn't move the needle. Maybe it gets you your fan base to cheer for you. But for the rest of America, it's a pretty ugly move to say of somebody doing their job, how dare you do the job?
Well, right. And also, Minnesota doesn't have stand your ground laws. They have a duty to retreat. Luke, of course, it's not just former Chicago mayor who has a problem with this. It's current one, too. Now, Chicago is having their annual Name Your Snowplow contest, which is just the most ridiculous thing, considering people are getting murdered on the street. And one guy wanted to name it Abolish ICE. And here's what he had to say. Roll this.
This truck being named Abolish ICE has my full and complete endorsement.
I'd pick the IRS to abolish, but that's just me, Luke.
Yeah, I think the snowplow is going to be ICE against the illegal immigrants that are in that city. And it's just ridiculous to see the response coming from elected officials and former elected officials against those enforcing the law. There is nothing unconstitutional about enforcing the law. And these are the individuals who are standing in between the United States of America and allowing all of these people to come into the United States. So I don't understand where they get off.
Yeah, exactly. Tony, the other thing, this just doubles down on illegal immigrants being the problem. But I mean, like, there's one way to stop them. If an illegal person is caught stealing, this guy just pulled this Uno reverse card and stole back from the. Watch this goat.
Hey, no stealing beer today, hombre. Sorry. Are you sorry? Sorry, I'm paid. Why are you sorry? I didn't get no money. You're not sorry?
That's the second time we caught him.
5 beers?
That's the second time we.
He's sorry?
Yeah.
You're not sorry. You do this every day.
I mean, if stereotypes existed for a reason, he stole Modelo.
Never mind any part of the stereotype. I don't get to decide what beer people drink. I mean, they still drink IPAs. I don't quite understand those people in the slightest. They're porters and stouts. Let's everybody grow up.
Only in Boston.
But the story here is exhaustion, right? The American people, in large measure, are saying enough. What do you mean people can come in and rob the Target or rob this place? Everything's under lock and key, and I have to suffer. It doesn't make any sense to us. It's a valueless proposition. It's no way to run a society. People engage in this stuff, some might think is vigilantism. The rational American sees this as, we're not going to allow this in our backyards, in our lives, in our societies, in our neighborhoods. I appreciate that.
And you're absolutely right. It's just shocking to me. But what's even worse, I think, than the illegal problem is this tranny problem we got going on here, where people are confused about things. Now, Duluth associate professor, this thing, Nomi Ostrander, that thing received the 2025 Paul and Sheila Wellstone Award for Social Justice. I don't even know what that is, but apparently this award, quote, recognizes Ostrander's extensive contributions to advance social justice for transgender and expensive communities in Minnesota and beyond. By what metric has anything advanced due to that neck tattoo?
Elton Johnba the Hutt is what I'm labeling that guy right there. And I think that this is probably just symptomatic of all of the taxpayer dollars being wasted in that state. They're either going overseas to terrorist organizations.
There it is.
They're being thrown out the back door to the Somali immigrants, or they're going to wasteful programs all across the United States, like whatever subsidies that are giving this individual in this college. And so I'm really hopeful that the outlandishness that we see from instances like this and the Somali daycare stuff allows the taxpayers to wake up and actually start investigating how their taxpayer dollars are being used right now, and they will use that knowledge to inform on them in the midterm election.
Instead, they're employing in academia that thing. Lastly, real quick, Tony, not surprising, but New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani sworn in tomorrow. He's going to appoint this lawyer, Razim Kasim, to be New York City's chief counsel for defending terrorists.
My brother, the good Dr. Katz, always discusses the fact that he wants socialists to live under their socialist policies. He wants them to suffer through it so they understand how terrible it is. The problem is the rest of us do as well. New York, you voted for this. You bought your tickets. You knew what you were getting into. To quote Airplane, I say let them crash. This is going to be a fascinating study going on for the next couple of years. Let's see how New Yorkers handle it.
Yeah, well, the real estate's already crashing. Tony, Luke, have a great New Year.
You too,
Thanks, man.
All right, coming up, we're breaking down some of the weirdest laws passed this year, and I bet you didn't even know some of these existed. Keep it right here.
A new president is sworn in. America's greatness is restored. Millions of Americans are tuning in to Newsmax. Even President Trump says Newsmax is terrific. Watch Newsmax or download our free app on your TV or phone today.
From the beginning, America has depended on the courage and resilience of those who serve in our armed forces. For 250 years, they've been there for us without fail, putting their lives on the line, defending our freedom, helping us become the nation we are today. At Wounded Warrior Project, our mission honors the past by building a better future for post-9/11 veterans, service members, and their families. Our life-changing programs and services help warriors improve their mental and physical health, access the VA benefits they've earned, and connect with their communities, their purpose, and each other. Warriors have given us their best. Join us in supporting them through the next 250 years of strength, resilience, and recovery. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/USA250.
Lock in 50% off for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System.
Thinking about retirement? Would you like to have retirement income that you can count on for the rest of your life? How about up to 33% more income? Call this number to get this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers. This book is filled with valuable information uncovering little-known secrets to help you maximize your income in retirement. And it's free. Retirement income you can count on starts by calling for this free book. As a bonus, we'll also rush this annuity rate report, also absolutely free. Annuity National researched numerous products and summarized the rates and benefits of annuities from foremost insurance companies like Nassau Life and Annuity. Call for both these free books. Annuity National, retirement income you can count on for the rest of your life. Call now.
For your free books, call 800-994-6789. That's 800-994-6789. 800-994-6789.
Not gonna happen.
That's it. I'm calling Kohler about their walk-in bath.
My name is Ken. How may I help you?
Hi, I'm calling about Kohler's walk-in bath.
Excellent. Happy to help. Huh? Hold one moment, please. The Kohler walk-in bath features an extra wide opening and a low step-in at 3 inches, which is lower than other walk-in baths on the market. The bath fills and drains quickly, while the heated backrest soothes your back, neck, and shoulders. Kohler is an expert in bathing, so you can count on a deep soaking experience.
Are you seeing this?
The Kohler walk-in bath comes with fully adjustable hydrotherapy jets and our exclusive bubble massage. Everything is installed in as little as a day by a Kohler certified installer. And it's made by Kohler, America's leading plumbing brand.
We need this bath.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Call 800-895-7154
to receive $1,000 off your Kohler walk-in bath and take advantage of no payments until 2027.
Well, folks, it's that time of year. Normally, I would have made this my opening monologue, but there's too much going on with all this fraud stuff. So I thought we'd take a minute and go through some of the weirdest, stupidest, dumbest, biggest wasteful laws Congress and local governments passed that I bet you didn't even hear about. All right, let's do this first one, okay? I mean, this is really great. Illinois deer meat rule, which placed limitations on who could process deer meat to be given to poor and homeless people. And who better to go through these than with my good friend, lawmaker, Oklahoma Senator, and avid hunter, Markwayne Mullin. Sir, you can't, like, they restricted how you give donated meat to homeless people?
You can't make stupid up, Carl. I mean, you just look at this and you go, seriously? I mean, but this is what blue states do. They overregulate everything and they take the freedom of individuals away, making essentially people dependent on the government because, you know, lawmakers know best, right? I mean, this is one of the stupidest things that I've seen, but hey, it's Illinois, and we know who the governor is there.
Yeah, I mean, I donate deer meat a couple times a year, and I'm not allowed to gut the deer. I have to gut it, but I'm not allowed to parse it out and debone it myself. Right. I have to bring the whole carcass because of regulations. It's like, okay, you guys do more work than you have to do. All right, I want to do this.
I go deer hunting, and of course, my boys, they drag me out to go duck hunting, and right now we're out shooting geese. Yeah. But the fact is, we donate a lot of that meat. But we do have to take it to a processor that's already licensed in the state anyways, but to limit it, it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's so dumb. You know what? The Democrats want homeless people to starve. That's what it comes down to. All right, next up, New York's car wash rule. This is why you needed mandated car washes to clearly post when promotional pricing expires. That was worth the vote.
Yeah. Do you also know that in New York it's illegal to sleep in someone else's outhouse? I'm not joking. I looked it up before I got here. Because I saw you was going to go this route, and I thought, I'm going to look at some interesting facts, too. By the way, Pennsylvania, it's illegal to sell a car on Sunday and whistle in town streets.
I mean, this is like the one that we did last year where it's illegal to shoot a whale from your car. I was like, is this really a problem? Here's another one from California where a bill passed to form cannabis cafes, allowing state-licensed weed dispensaries to play live music and serve food, but only non-alcoholic beverage. It's okay to smoke the devil's lettuce and get high as a kite, but you can't do it with alcohol.
But you can't mix it with alcohol. I read that one and I started laughing too. I was like, what? So you can smoke a joint, but it's illegal to sell alcohol, but you can sell snacks. Yeah. I mean, but I guess they're kind of cut down calories someplace because they're fighting obesity.
Yeah, exactly. Here's your pot brownie, 440 calories per bite. All right, Idaho. Actually, this is like a pretty free state, so I was surprised that the state made it a misdemeanor to display obscene novelty accessories, and I'm talking specifically about truck nuts that hang from your tailgate.
I don't know how many are running around New York City, but there are a lot down here. Now, I don't disagree with it. I just don't want to ban the freedom to buy them. I mean, because they are getting pretty big. It seems like the bigger the truck gets, the bigger the truck nuts get. Yeah. I'm not understanding that one. But I'd rather see them ban. You know, the truckers that support, you know, larger women that are sitting in provocative positions. I'd rather see them ban that than the truck nuts.
Yeah. It's just like, you imagine the conversation like, we need to ban this. My virgin eyes were very offensive. Hold my phone while I go spend campaign money on strippers. Like that's literally the people who do this.
Yes.
California just passed this one into law, requiring a working refrigerator in all apartments. And of course, LA landlords, they're fighting it. But look, these guys lost like $30 million trying to fight homeless population that only got worse. And they're worried about refrigerators in apartments.
Well, I mean, but we all know, unless they have rent control, like it's going to happen in New York, the renter is going to pay for that either way. I mean, they're going to pass the cost on. So fine, but make us have the refrigerator in there. I'm going to make the tenant end up. I mean, not make, but I'm going to add it to my rent. So the tenant's going to end up buying that refrigerator anyways.
Yeah, exactly. The Democrats are financially illiterate. All right, something good that coming from your home state. You're going to receive $223 million for rural health transformation programs. Tell us a little bit about that in your state.
Well, this is the part of the one big beautiful bill. So while the Democrats were saying that, thousands of people were going to die and the morgues were going to be overflowing because we were running health care, the one big beautiful bill underneath President Trump's leadership actually put $50 billion specifically for rural health care. And the state of Oklahoma is receiving $223 million of it. Now, what does that do? It'll help with the next workforce. It'll help with telemedicine, which is vitally important. And it also allows critical care status because rural hospitals, most of the time they are a transport. They are a life-stabilizing hospital that will allow this person to be transported to a larger hospital with more resources. But because there's very few incidences like that, because like in my home county, Adair County, there's like 6,000 people total that live in the state, or live in the county, but there's only one hospital. Unfortunately, we just lost that hospital several months ago.
Wow.
This critical this critical care with $223 million can help reopen that hospital.
I mean, that's the one good thing we read in the whole segment today. Senator Markwayne Mullin, happy hunting, sir.
Carl, happy New Year, brother.
You too. All right, coming up, silver rocketed in 2025, but could big banks actually bleed billions from their short positions facing margin calls if it continues to go up? Deets next.
Muscle cramps were keeping me up at night, so then I tried Slowmag, the magnesium plus calcium supplement that helps relax tense muscles so I can rest comfortably. And Slowmag tablets have a slow-release formula that's gentle on my stomach. That's why I use Slowmag.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
President Trump promised to put America first, and his word is as good as gold. Trump delivered a secure border, unleashed American energy, and provided the largest tax cut in American history. Now Trump has delivered again by rescheduling cannabis, which was classified as more dangerous than fentanyl. Trump's action will destroy the cartel's illicit black market, expand medical research, and ensure seniors and veterans safely receive the care they need. Thank President Trump for delivering on another America First promise.
One simple but brilliant trick to get 100 milligram generic Viagra for just 87 cents in less than 2 minutes. CVS and Walgreens don't want you to know about this because they sell the same tablets for $30 to $40 each. Don't believe me? Look at this. This is from CVS. Look, 9 tablets, 100 milligrams sildenafil, aka generic Viagra, for $406. That's $45 a tablet. This is from Walgreens. $417 for 9 tablets of 100 milligram sildenafil, or $46 a tablet. You can now get the same 9 tablets, the same 100 milligram strength from Friday Plans for just 87 cents each. To get generic Viagra from Friday Plans, text CRISP, CRISP, to 69069. Once you text, they will send you a special link, and all you need to do is select why you need generic Viagra, the quantity you need, and the dosage. I'll pick 100 milligrams, thank you very much. And then their system will see if you qualify. Give it a second to find the best deal. And boom! Look at that. 87 cents for each 100 milligram generic Viagra tablet. The prescription and shipping are free. Friday Plans delivers your medication in a plain white package like this in 2 to 3 days. Once you open it, you find this inside. Each tablet comes individually wrapped so you can tear one off and put it in your wallet. If you need generic Viagra, you need to take advantage of this program. Over 40,000 men across the U.S. have already signed up. Right now, Friday Plans is offering a special deal for new customers. $10 off your first package. The prescription is free and the shipping is free as well. Don't wait. Text CRISP, CRISP, to 69069 today.
Well, silver has been one of 2025's standout performers, so surging almost 145%, I think, year to date, around $29 to $30 an ounce at the start of the year, to highs briefly over $80 an ounce before a little bit of a correction, 73, 75. I mean, it came right back just last week, making it the best year silver has had since the 70s. But here's my concern. Big banks right now have hundreds of billions. I mean, they have more short positions on silver than there is physical silver. There's not enough in the world to cover the amount that they have bet that silver will go down. So the question is, are banks going to get squeezed? Business and market analyst Seth Denson, can't think of a better guy to figure this one out, but is this bad? Is it good? I mean, what if silver, let's say silver doubles, do you get a GameStop scenario for big banks?
Can someone say too big to fail 2.0, Carl? I mean, that's effectively the position that some of them in. The largest holder of short positions, JP Morgan, is taking a significant short position. And the idea is that Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan and their commodities traders are looking at the market and saying, well, if the Fed cuts rates next year and the economy continues to do well, silver should come back down as the dollar weakens because it's a hedge against that. So they're hedging that bet. And by the way, I hope they're right from a perspective of the Fed cutting and the economy staying strong. If the economy starts to fail, though, and global geopolitical economy fails, well, guess what? Everybody's calling Mexico to do a deal as one of the largest holders of silver. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it could be great for the economy. It could be bad. I don't really care if the banks fail, but that's just me. Housing bubble, though, the other times the banks failed in 2008. Look at this graph. This is unrealized losses on investment securities, okay? Banks are holding huge notes of debt from people that took it out. But right now, if the housing is taking a downturn, which it is, by the way, because they were overvalued, banks are sitting on 10x the unrealized losses potentially of 2008.
Yeah, Yogi Berra, the deja vu all over again, right? And effectively what's happening here, Carl, is when the pricing of the houses increased because money was free, practically, and everybody was putting in those big bids. Banks were holding on to those notes, not selling them off. And ultimately what happens when the housing market has a correction? Well, the banks are holding those notes and people can't pay them off. And we saw that happen in 2008. And unfortunately, we're setting ourselves up for a position where it could happen again. My hope is that the administration continues to find ways to allow, I'm proposing something like a cap gains waiver on people with second and third homes that want to open them up into the market to try to balance out the housing market. Because if not, people are holding a lot of debt and the housing market will drop because of that debt because people just can't afford these mortgages anymore.
Yeah, well, and another thing, too, is Jerome Powell. You're talking about cutting interest rates. Jerome Powell sucks. All right, this guy was too late on pretty much every single one of his interest rate cuts, but his term is up in May. I mean, Trump has already said he may sue him for a number of things, including the renovations, but he's talking about Kevin Hassett, who's currently serving as the National Economic Council, former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh, Rick Ryder, the BlackRock's chief investment officer, member of the Fed Governor's Board. You got Christopher Waller, current Fed chair, vice chair, Michelle Brown. I mean, look, Kevin Hassett, or honestly, any of those guys would be better than Jerome Powell.
Well, no question. I think Jerome Powell, much like Janet Yellen and many that came before and hopefully won't come after, did exactly what you said. They waited too long to push the button to raise rates, I think for political reasons, and then they waited too long to cut rates, again, likely for political reasons. And then they did it, and what happened was the markets reacted. Look at what the 10-year Treasury is doing, Carl. The 10-year Treasury should be dropping given what Fed Chair Powell is doing now, but because he waited so long, the bondholders are saying, wait, now we're going to have quantitative easing where the Fed's going to have to go buy those bonds to get the 10-year Treasury down, and it's just not a good position to be in.
Just for viewers, quantitative easing is a fancy term the finance world likes to use for just printing more money.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Real quick, I got 20 seconds. Brick and mortar stores having problems. Saks Fifth Avenue may file bankruptcy.
Yeah, this is the evolution of the e-commerce era, and for those stores like Saks Fifth Avenue, which is was acquired as part of a big $2.7 billion deal, they didn't change with the times, and when the consumer is stretched for cash, they're going to go to cheaper alternatives. Unfortunately, Saks Fifth Avenue, not one of those.
This gives my producer Sam the sads. Seth, Happy New Year.
Me too. Same
All right, before we go, America's 250th birthday is kicking off on New Year's Eve. Details next.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Hey, I just got a text from my sister. You remember Rick, her neighbor?
Sure. He's the 76-year-old guy who still runs marathons, right?
Sadly, not anymore.
What? You mean...
Mm-hmm. Just like that.
Wow. So sudden. We're not about to have the we need life insurance conversation again, are we?
No, we're having the we're getting coverage so we don't have to worry about it conversation.
So you're calling about the $9.95 a month plan from Colonial Penn?
I am. We put it off long enough. We are getting that $9.95 plan today.
Is it time for you to call about the $9.95 plan? I'm Jonathan from Colonial Penn Life Insurance Company. Sometimes we just need a reminder not to take today for granted. It could be the death of someone you know or a health scare. That's why today could be a great day to call for free information about Colonial Penn's 995 plan. If you're age 50 to 85, you can get guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance starting at just $9.95 a month. There are no health questions, so you can't be turned down for any health reason. This is permanent coverage. Just pay your premiums for lifelong security. The 995 plan is Colonial Penn's #1 most popular whole life plan. Options start at just $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate can never go up. It's locked in for life. Don't put it off. Take the first easy step. Call today for free information. And you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. So call now.
Call 1-800-601-9997 for your free information and free gift. That's 1-800-601-9997. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-601-9997. 1-800-601-9997. Call now.
Hello, Colonial Penn?
What if getting older didn't mean living with joint discomfort, brain fog, or low energy? Qualia Senolytic is the only all-in-one clinically tested formula with 9 ingredients designed to help your body clear aging cells. Taken just 2 days a month, this regimen works at the cellular level to rejuvenate energy and support longevity, helping you stay active and energized. With Qualia Senolytic, life truly gets better with age. Start today at qualialife.com/BOGO.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, build me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
WSOP presents the NFL Poker Experience. Rep your team. Compete in exciting NFL tournaments and win exclusive NFL Poker Championship rings. Download the WSOP free-to-play app for a chance to win $1,000 towards your favorite team merchandise.
Well, tonight, in honor of America's 250th birthday, Freedom 250, the nonprofit organization President Trump announced to lead the 250th celebration, will transform the Washington Monument into the world's tallest birthday candle. From New Year's Eve through January 5th, a 6-night projection mapping spectacle will illuminate the iconic monument. It's going to create this canvas that tells America's story of discovery, expansion, revolution, independence, and innovation. Notice we didn't mention racism in there. Keep It Freedom 250 CEO Keith Cratch saying, our aim is to bring Americans together, and what better way to do that than celebrating our great country? It's going to be, that is actually going to be an insane party, the amount of things that he's preparing for that. Well, folks, from all of us here on Frontline, Happy New Year to you and your families. Make sure you tune in to New Year's Eve special tonight. Coverage beginning at 8 p.m. right here. We'll see you same time, same place in the new year tomorrow.